Hey everybody, video here for you today. Let's tack another one on to my Ancient America series. I have had a few comments on this one, and this is something that Graham Hancock mentioned in his book, America Before. I think this is a pretty fascinating story. I have not covered it yet, but it's about time. Let's go down to San Diego, California. Now, this site was discovered in 1992, I believe, when a highway was put in here. We can see here this was an ancient stream bed, and what was found here was pretty controversial, but Graham Hancock featured this in his book America Before, and I think this should be looked at as a pretty important find. Though it is controversial, let's just read. It says here, a team of researchers from the San Diego Natural History Museum, led by Thomas Deméré, excavated the site from 1992 to 1993. The site is named after Richard Cerutti, another paleontologist from the museum who was credited with discovering the site during freeway expansion of State Route 54. And here is the route expansion excavation work where these Mastodon bones were found. But this is Nature, and this came out over 2.5 years ago. It says, humans are thought to have reached the Americas less than 15,000 years ago, but evidence of stone tool use on animal carcass excavated in California points to a much earlier arrival of human relatives from the genus Homo. It says Holland and colleagues analyzed evidence from the Cerutti Mastodon archaeological site in Southern California, which contains a sequence of stream-deposited sediments. One deposited layer of bone bed known as Bed E contained the remains of a mastodon, an extinct animal distantly related to elephants. The mastodon's long bones, molars, and tusks were found in a fragmented state bearing modification marks similar to those found by repeated battering by hammer stones and a spatial arrangement not usually found when a carcass decays after death. In addition, the ends of the bones were broken off, suggesting this was done to extract the bone marrow for consumption. Wolf and horse bones in adjacent layers did not show these unusual characteristics. Moreover, the mastodon bones were in 2 separate spatial clusters, each associated with 2 or 3 stone cobbles of local raw material. The cobbles were oversized compared to the rest of the layer's fine-grained sediment matrix. It says there was a possible anvil stone found there weighing 8.3 kilograms. But it says a meticulous protocol was used to sample the sediments from a sequence of layers in the various excavation areas. The refitting of unintentionally detached stone flakes back into the parent cobbles and bone flakes back onto long bones suggests that Bed E was rapidly buried and therefore well preserved. It says there is a striking contrast between the contents of Bed E and the layers above and below, which contained only shells and rodent teeth and lacked any possible stone tools. Detailed sediment analysis by the authors do not support material displacement through the action of water, trampling by animals, or other burial or fossilization processes that could affect archaeological find and explanations. The big surprise is the site's age. Rigorous uranium series dating of the bones yielded an estimated burial age of 130,700 years, plus 9,700 years ago, coinciding with the beginning of the wet and warm last interglacial period. The finds from the Bed E could place hominins in the New World more than 100,000 years earlier than previously thought. Possible hominin candidates for the authors of the Cerutti Mastodon site are late populations of Homo erectus, Neanderthals, and the elusive Denisovans. Genetic analysis of present-day Amazonian Native Americans links them to indigenous Asian and Australian populations, which are linked in turn to the Denisovans. So what kind of answers can we gather from this? Well, one thing is for sure, we know little or nothing about early human migration. Now let's just jump over to a story that came out about a month ago. Now here's a story that came out a little over a month ago. Bones filled with marrow served as prehistoric humans cans of soup. But it says, people who lived hundreds of thousands of years ago may not have had pantries or supermarkets, but they stocked up on food when they could. Researchers recently discovered evidence from a cave in Israel dating back more than 400,000 years suggests that after butchering their animal prey, Paleolithic humans didn't eat everything immediately. Rather, they stored bones packed with fat and tasty, nutrient-rich marrow to crack open and eat later, much as people today might open a can of soup. But this story came out a little over a month ago, and just an interesting thing to add to the San Diego story. ancient humans seemed to be doing this, and it was maybe a common practice in ancient times. And here's a pic by Thomas Deméré, the fracturing of the Mastodon bone. And this is all very controversial. You can find just as many websites that try to disprove this as try to make this an actual verified story. But here's a little bit from Graham Hancock's book, America Before, where he talks about this and visiting this museum. He talks about the dinosaurs and how they kind of left in a cataclysm and how that has happened other times on Earth. But he says, however, a cataclysm was not to blame 130,000 years ago when a lone mastodon, perhaps old or sick, died on the floodplain in Southern California and was subsequently scavenged, with the carcass then quite rapidly covered by and entombed in a deposit of silty, sandy, fine-grained sediment. There it remained until November 1992, when the California Department of Transportation undertook highway construction on State Route 54, where San Diego borders National City. It was routine practice for the paleontologists from the NAT, and that is the nickname for the museum there in San Diego, to monitor road grading in Southern California in case any important fossil material was exposed, said Richard Cerutti. And Richard Cerutti, the monitor on duty on State Road 54, spotted the fossilized bones and the tusks of what he thought was a mammoth. He halted construction in the immediate vicinity until proper excavation could be undertaken, and he called in his boss, Dr. Tom Deméré, to lead it. It says from quite early on, both Cerutti, after whom the site was named, and Deméré were intrigued by what the excavations revealed. Many of the bones were strangely fractured or missing entirely, and there were several large stones found in the same sediment layer as the bones and teeth that appeared to be out of place. It looked like an archaeological site, like to preserve evidence of human activity, as well as the hefty rocks, unusual in the fine-grained sediment. Smaller pieces of sharply broken stone were found peppered throughout the Cerutti Mastodon site. This is not typically something you would see as a result of a normal geological process. The combination of stones together with the broken bones was interesting and intrigued speculation regarding the possibility of human activity at the site. The end result, after key finds were moved to the NAT, where they were housed in the archives, was that the site was reburied and abandoned. Despite its anomalous character and suspected importance, it was just too explosive to put before the scrutiny of hostile archaeologists while the dates remained uncertain. If you claim something that is old, you get blasted, Cerutti said, referring to the Clovis First lobby, which is why some archaeologists stopped working on sites like this. They didn't want to get blasted. It isn't that the Cerutti Mastodon site was completely forgotten in the 25 years after excavation stopped. It's on the record that Tom Deméré invited several other researchers to study the collection of key finds kept at the NAT, but none did so. But Mr. Hancock goes into the Clovis First theory and how that was just held on to just desperately by people clinging to the standard model of history. And frankly, I don't give a damn about that. I just want to know what happened. Some research needs to be investigated. It's controversial. There are two sides to every story. But I don't care about theories that are just clung on to just because that is the accepted theory and that is what is taught. I don't care about that whatsoever. I just want to know what happened. We are in a new age of discovery. We have more options at our fingertips to decode the past. Here's the story from Nature concluding. The evidence from the Cerutti Mastodon site has been rigorously researched and presented and might be more difficult to refute. Even the proposed hominin narrative derived from these data has some gaping holes that need filling. Time will tell whether this evidence will bring a paradigm change in our understanding of the processes of hominin dispersal and colonization throughout the world, including in what now seems to be a not-so-new world. But I will leave this website below. This is a hotcupofjoe.net, and he kind of goes into why he doesn't agree with this and the reasons. Number one, modern humans probably did not expand out of Africa until 50 to 80,000 years ago. So are they just clinging to old theories, desperately trying to hang on to what is accepted as a standard model of history in different aspects, and then they try to relate it to this story? I just don't think we know really much at all, period, about what happened back 20, 50, 100,000 years ago. We're basically clueless. But anything anybody could add to this would be appreciated. I am looking into some longer videos, as I said yesterday, but I wanted to do a video on this. I already had part of this put together. How far back does human migration go? But isn't it possible that humans have always been here and history just needs to be rewritten? That is a possibility we need to think about. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have. Very nice day.